Hey guys, tonight we're not stepping into a romanticized medieval fairy tale. There are no noble knights, no golden goblets, no candlelit feasts in towering castles. We're slipping quietly into a different story. The one behind the curtain, the one where life in medieval Europe wasn't just hard. It was brutal. So before we begin, if you enjoy these quiet, strange dives into the past, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. And drop a comment, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always amazing to see this sleepy little community stretching across time zones. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft, steady hum. Let your body melt into the mattress. Let your breath slow. And congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1325. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so are the fleas. You're lying on a half-rotted straw mattress stuffed with hay that smells like an old barn because it was an old barn 3 months ago. No memory foam, no pillow, just a scratchy wool blanket that hasn't been washed since last winter and now weighs about as much as a sheep because it's basically part sheep. You blink awake to the sound of a distant church bell, the medieval version of an alarm clock, except louder, and somehow even less forgiving. You're home, a wooden hut with one room. No windows, no doors that close properly. Just a charming open floor plan shared with your family, a few chickens, one goat, and an enthusiastic colony of domestic insects. The smell, it's something. A bold bouquet of stale beer, human sweat, wet wood, and something in the corner you hope is mold, but in your soul, you know it's not. You try to stretch, but instantly regret it. The air is freezing. Your joints ache. You're 22 years old, which in medieval terms makes you basically middle-aged. Your spine creaks like a drawbridge. Your knees sound like someone shaking a sack of rocks. And the floor, well, it's either damp from last night's rain, which leaked through the thatched roof, or crusty from something your neighbor's chicken did. Either way, your bare feet are now part of the ecosystem. There is no privacy, no bedroom, no me time. Just you, your siblings, your mother, her sister, 2 sleeping pigs, and your Uncle Wolfstan snoring into a cabbage sack. You are never truly alone because parasites, rodents, and 8 other people are always with you. And this is just how the day starts. Chapter 1. A Grim Awakening. Welcome to 1325. You sit up slowly. Every joint complains. Your neck cracks. Your lower back stages a minor protest. You look around your one-room universe. The fire in the hearth is nothing but gray ash now. It went out during the night, as it always does, and no one bothered to keep it going, because the wood ran out 2 days ago. You don't get to decide when the day starts. The church bell does, and now the rooster, not yours, the neighbor's, is screaming like it's auditioning for a horror film. You rub your eyes, not because you're tired, that's a given, but because something just crawled across your face. It might have been a flea, or a spider, or just your imagination. But in the Middle Ages, imagination and reality are often the same thing, especially when it comes to things that bite. You swing your feet off the edge of the bed, though bed is a generous term, and they land in something cold. It's either a puddle from the leaking roof, or something worse. There's no light switch, just a faint blue-gray hue squeezing its way in through the open door frame. Glass windows are for nobles and churches. You get wind and damp, you shiver, and you itch. Always you itch. Your body is a buffet for lice, bedbugs, and invisible itches passed down like family heirlooms. You scratch with a stick. You scratch with your spoon. You scratch with whatever's closest. You've never heard of hygiene. Not in the modern sense. There is no soap, no deodorant, no toothpaste, no shampoo. If you want to clean yourself, you throw river water over your head and hope it doesn't make you sicker than you already feel. You glance at your clothes, if you can call them that. A single wool tunic, the same one you've worn every day since last harvest. It's scratchy damp and smells like the goat. Because sometimes the goat sleeps on it. You put it on anyway. There are no clean options, no dresser, no closet, no laundry basket. Just one outfit hanging on a peg, stiff with yesterday's sweat and last week's stew. And shoes. You don't have shoes. Your neighbor does. He's 50. He earned them when he lost 3 toes to frostbite. You, on the other hand, still have all your toes, but no protection. You walk across the room and greet the day by stepping directly onto something warm. It squishes. You don't look down. You never look down. It's better that way. Your little brother is already up. He's poking the embers in the hearth, hoping to coax a flame. He's 5 years old and already has the 1,000-yard stare of a man who's seen too many turnips. Your mother is grinding grain in a wooden bowl. Not enough for real bread, just enough for mush. Breakfast is a communal affair. A bowl of pottage passed around each person, getting a slop. You'll eat it in a moment. But first, nature calls, and there is no bathroom. You step outside your breath, visible in the morning air. Chickens cluck. Someone's cow is already mooing in the distance. A pig trots by snorting in judgment. Behind your house is a bucket. That's it. That's the whole toilet. It's half full. Actually, now that you look closer, it's overflowing. Uncle Wolf stand again. Turnips, bad ones. You hold your breath, do your business, and dump the contents in the alleyway. Because that's what you do. You shout Gardilou the Old French for watch out below, and pour. A river of waste joins the rest of the street, an open sewer where chickens drink and barefoot children play. This is your world. It's not glamorous, it's not heroic, it's not what history books usually focus on. But it's real, and you, friend, are part of it. You've survived the bed, you've braved the cold, you've emptied the bucket, and somehow you're still standing. So now it's time for breakfast. But don't get your hopes up, because comfort is not on the menu. Chapter 2. Bathroom Horrors, Gardilou and the Chamber Pots. So, you survived the bed, you survived the smell. You even survived the communal morning shuffle, a ballet of elbows, sneezes, and sighs performed over a single shared bowl of pottage. But now, nature is no longer politely knocking. It is pounding on the door of your intestines. And that door doesn't exist, because medieval Europe doesn't do doors, or privacy, or plumbing. You need a bathroom, which is funny, because you don't have one. If you're a peasant, and statistically your bathroom is a wooden bucket, located behind the house, it has no seat, no lid, and no dignity. It also contains last night's regrets from everyone in your household, and probably a few visitors, like the neighbor's kid, or the neighbor's pig. You approach it like a soldier approaching a cursed relic. You've done this 1,000 times. You hold your breath, lower yourself into position, and try not to think about Uncle Wolfstan's digestive choices. But it's full. Of course it's full, because no one wants to empty it. And now it's your turn. So you grab the sloshing pail by its splintery handles, say a silent prayer to St. Lou, and make your way to the street. Yes, the street. Because this is where your waste goes. Out the window, into the alley, into the open sewer that is the shared public highway, lined with footprints, hoofprints, chicken feathers, and vague streaks of despair. Before you dump it, you're supposed to shout something. Gardilou, it's derived from the French garde l'eau, meaning watch out for the water. It's polite, it's traditional. And it changes absolutely nothing. Because by the time someone hears it, the contents of your bucket are already flying through the air in a graceful arc. A medieval baptism, a warning shot, a societal failure made liquid. The muck lands with a splat. Someone curses. A dog trots over to investigate. You feel lighter, but not proud. No one feels proud in this situation. You return the bucket to its corner and hope you don't need it again before nightfall. But let's say for variety, you live in a town. Lucky you. Because towns sometimes have public latrines. They're basically long wooden benches over a pit. Think outhouse meets picnic table, with holes, and no partitions, and no ventilation, and no boundaries. You sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, all doing the same thing. You might make small talk. You might pretend this isn't the most undignified moment of your day. You might stare straight ahead and try not to breathe through your nose. Toilet paper? Never heard of it. Instead, you wipe with straw moss leaves rags, your own personal regret. If you're lucky, and by lucky we mean noble, you might get a scrap of wool. Luxury wiping. Let's check in on the rich. Surely they had it better. In castles, they used garderobe stone seats built into the outer wall, with a hole leading down into the moat. Convenient, private, also deeply unsanitary, because the waste dropped straight into the water, and attackers knew that. Yes, people have been known to climb into castles through the toilet chute. Medieval stealth mission. Enter via the back door. Literally. Back to you. You've done your business. You've emptied your bucket. You've survived your brief, fragrant encounter with medieval sanitation. But here's the worst part. You're still not clean, because there is no sink, no faucet, no soap, no running water. If you want to wash your hands, a noble idea, you walk to the nearest stream, which is probably downstream from someone else's bucket, and you splash that on your skin. And you call it good enough. This is why handshakes are rare. This is why cutting food with your fingers is risky. This is why people just stop caring. You don't wash, you don't scrub, you just carry on, layering one day's grime atop the last like a bad lasagna of bodily regret. And now you understand why people didn't smile much. Because behind every medieval smile was a secret. Nobody had washed their hands in weeks. But chin up. You've emptied your bowels. You've dodged the splash zone. And now maybe, just maybe, it's time for breakfast. But don't get excited, because breakfast in 1325 isn't exactly continental. Chapter 3. The Breakfast That Breaks You, Pottage and Pain Breakfast. The word conjures warm visions, sizzling bacon, golden toast, a steaming cup of coffee. But not here. Not now. Not in 1325. In medieval Europe, breakfast is not a joy. It's not even really a meal. It's a requirement, a chore your stomach forces on you, and your mouth reluctantly endures. You sit, or more accurately squat, near the hearth. There's no table, no chairs, just a low splintery bench and a three-legged stool that wobbles like it's drunk. In the center, a wooden bowl. Inside, a viscous, grayish substance. It glistens with a faint sheen like old glue left in the sun. This is your breakfast. It's called pottage. Pottage is not food. It's a survival strategy. A thick, gloopy stew made from anything edible and many things that aren't. Grains, root vegetables, onion peels, maybe a bean. Whatever didn't rot last week gets tossed into the pot. The same pot that's been simmering for days or weeks. New ingredients aren't added so much as buried. It's less of a recipe and more of an edible compost pile. And you eat it every morning. Your spoon, wooden, chipped, slick with memories of 100 previous meals. It never gets fully clean. But that's fine. Nothing else does either. You dip in and scoop out a lump. It jiggles slightly. You try not to think about that. On the side is a hunk of bread. It looks sturdy. It is sturdy. This is not soft, pillowy bread. This is the trench bread, coarse rye or barley, often bulked up with sawdust or ground acorns. It has the density of a brick and the flavor of damp regret. You do not slice this bread. You challenge it. You bite it the way a soldier charges into battle, with commitment and fear. It cracks, but your teeth crack faster. You chew until your jaw hurts, and when you finally manage to swallow, you are rewarded with nothing. Just the slow realization that you'll be eating this again tomorrow. What about eggs, meat, cheese, dream on? You might get those on saints' feast days, or if your Lord is feeling unusually generous. But today is just Tuesday. No miracles expected. And drink you want water. That's adorable. Water is unsafe. Always. It's full of parasites and filth. You've learned this the hard way twice. Instead, you're served ale. Yes, beer. At dawn. But not the strong, joyful kind. This is small beer. Low alcohol, barely fermented, flat as the field behind your hut. Children drink it. Grandmothers drink it. Even the priest drinks it. Because water is dangerous, and beer at least is boiled. You sip it with grim acceptance. It's warm. It's sour. But it won't kill you. Yet. You look down at your bowl of pottage. Something moves. Might have been a beetle. Might have been your imagination again. You stir, then eat anyway. Because there is no alternative. And here's the thing. You're not eating to be full. You're eating to not faint in the fields by midday. Because if you fall behind in your work, you don't eat tomorrow. Food is not pleasure. It is punishment. It is the price of staying alive. You glance at the hearth. The fire's out. Again. Fuel is scarce. Wood is expensive. And you're not technically allowed to gather it from the nearby forest, because that forest belongs to the Lord. Even your fire is political. You chew your gritty bread and sip your warm ale. A child sneezes into the pottage. No one flinches. It's too late for dignity now. You don't talk during breakfast. There's nothing to say. The same faces, the same meal, the same damp bench, day after day after day. This is not a moment of connection. This is fuel stop before the labor begins. And labor is coming. Because as soon as the bowl is empty, you're out the door. Into the fields, into the mud, into the endless aching routine of medieval survival. But for now, you swallow one last bite. It tastes like onions and apathy. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve, the same sleeve you used to blow your nose yesterday, and stand. You are not full, you are not happy, but you are fed, and that will have to be enough. Chapter 4. Dressing for Despair. Fashion in the Middle Ages. You've eaten your morning glue. You've swallowed your warm beer. And now, it's time to get dressed. Not that it'll help. You don't have a wardrobe, or a dresser, or a closet. You have a peg on the wall. And on that peg hangs the only outfit you own. One. Just one. It's a tunic made of rough wool, hand-stitched by someone with good intentions and bad eyesight. The seams are uneven. The sleeves are too long on one side and too short on the other. The neckline scratches, and the smell. Let's not talk about the smell. This tunic has seen things: harvests, rainstorms, plague parades. It has absorbed the sweat of your labor, the smoke from your hearth, and the faint hint of mildew that never quite washes out. Not that you've tried, because washing clothes is a monumental task. First you haul water, from a river stream or communal well where at least 3 people have already dropped their laundry, their hands, or their bodily waste. Then you heat the water over a fire, which means more wood, which means risking arrest if you pick the wrong twig from the wrong tree in the wrong forest. Once the water's hot, you scrub with ashes or lye, or something that calls itself soap but smells like disappointment and burns your knuckles. You beat the fabric on a rock, you rinse, you wring it out, and you hang it to dry on a line held up by hope and splinters. And after all that, it's still stained, still smells faintly of goat. So instead you just wear it again and again, until it falls apart, or until you do. Underneath the tunic there might be a linen shift, if you're lucky. If not, you're going commando in medieval wool. Every step is a scratch. Every breeze is a betrayal. Trousers maybe. Underwear, doubtful. Women's fashion offers similar comfort. A linen chemise, a wool overdress, laced tight, heavy, absorbent in all the wrong ways. If you're married, you cover your hair with a coif or wimple. If you're unmarried, your hair is braided and crawling with lice. Which brings us to the next point: parasites. They live in your clothes, in the seams, in the folds, in the wool, and on you. Fleas, lice, bedbugs. They don't discriminate. Everyone has them. Peasants, priests, nobles, nuns. Your clothes are not protection. They are habitat. You itch constantly. Your scalp is a war zone. Your armpits are inflamed. And you've stopped scratching in public only because everyone else is doing it too. Fashion is not a statement. It is a condition. There's no seasonal wardrobe, no summer look or fall colors. Just one outfit, always, until it wears out or gets passed down to your sibling who is still wearing your old tunic from last year, which you inherited from your cousin who may or may not have died in it. Shoes, if you own them, are decorative. Made of thin, untreated leather. No soles, no laces, no support. They keep out dust sometimes, and let in everything else. Most peasants just go barefoot, through mud, through manure, through medieval landmines, sharp stones, broken pots, bones, teeth, old tools, live rats, dead rats. And every step, you feel it, because your feet are cracked cold and raw. They've never seen socks. They've never known comfort. But you keep walking, because everyone else is, because you have work to do, because if you stop, someone will yell, or worse, offer you a second helping of pottage. You glance around at your neighbors. Everyone looks the same, colorless, patchy, layered in mud and sweat and sorrow. Nothing fits, nothing flatters, nothing matters. No one wears colors unless you're rich. And rich people wear color just to remind you that they can. Dyed fabric costs more than you'll earn in a year. Blue royal, red expensive, purple a fantasy. Your tunic is brown, it was once beige, now it's just uncertain. And hats, they exist. But they're less fashion and more function. A wool cap, a felt hood, a scarf. Something to keep the sun off or the rain out or the lice in. You don't dress to impress. You dress to survive. To not freeze, to not overheat, to not bleed when you walk. But mostly you dress because it's expected. Because you'd rather be miserable than naked. Because even in the Middle Ages there's shame, and your body is not your own. So now you're dressed in scratchy wool, with itchy seams, with no dignity. You are layered in fabric frustration and fatigue. And it's time to go, because the sun is up, and the fields are calling, and no one is waiting for you to feel comfortable. Chapter 5. Dental Doom Toothaches and Barber Surgeons. You're dressed, more or less. You're covered in wool, wrapped in discomfort, and vaguely resentful of every thread touching your skin. But you're not done. There's still one part of you that hasn't joined the medieval parade of misery. Your mouth. Let's fix that. You stretch your jaw, maybe yawn, and there it is, a sharp little pain buried behind your molars, a twinge, a throb, a reminder that your teeth are losing the war. Welcome to medieval dentistry, where there are no toothbrushes, no floss, no toothpaste, no mouthwash, and no escape. Some people chew twigs, some rinse with vinegar or wine. Most do nothing, because hygiene, like comfort, privacy, and dignity, is not a priority. Your teeth are chipped, your gums are red, your breath could curdle milk, and you haven't smiled in weeks. Because if you open your mouth too wide, something might fall out. Toothaches are constant, a background noise, like roosters, or weeping, or hunger. By the time you're 25, you've probably lost a few teeth. The rest are stained, decayed, and wobbling gently in place like loose stones in a wall. And sugar. The rich have it. They use it in tiny cakes imported from across the seas. And it destroys their teeth even faster. Rot doesn't discriminate. Whether you're eating pottage or pastries, your molars are doomed. When a tooth hurts, really hurts, there are only a few options, pray. To Saint Apollonia, the patron saint of toothaches. She was martyred by having her teeth pulled out. Relatable. Drink. Ale, wine, beer, anything to numb the pain. It won't fix the problem, but it might make you forget it for an hour. Visit the barber. Yes, the barber. Because in 1325, the same man who trims your beard also removes your infected tooth. His tools, not sterilized, not precise, not subtle, just a hook, a pair of iron tongs, and the quiet confidence of a man who's done this before once. You sit in his wooden chair. He offers you a rag to bite. Maybe a sip of something strong. He doesn't wash his hands. He reaches into your mouth. You regret every decision you've ever made. The pain is immediate, blinding, intimate, and public, because everyone hears you scream. And no one's surprised. You stumble away, clutching your face, blood on your tunic. One tooth lighter, one lesson learned. There is no aftercare. No gauze, no antibiotics. Just the hope that the wound doesn't become infected. Because if it does, if your face starts to swell, if fever sets in, you might die. Yes, from a toothache. Because there is no penicillin, no knowledge of bacteria, no understanding that the blackness spreading from your gum to your cheekbone is anything other than punishment from God. You lie in bed, sweating, shivering, a priest is called. He gives you last rites. Your cousin cries. Your neighbor borrows your shoes. And if you survive, congratulations. You get to eat soft food for the rest of your life, assuming you can still chew. There's no dental chart, no cleanings, no braces. Crooked teeth stay crooked. Missing teeth stay missing. And bad breath, universal. It's not a flaw. It's a feature. People don't kiss for romance. They kiss out of obligation, and even then, only if they like you enough to endure the smell. Your mouth is a battlefield, and no one's winning. You chew on your gritty bread. You sip your warm beer. You feel a wobble in your lower jaw and pretend it's nothing. Because pretending is easier than seeing the barber again, or dying in a puddle of your own pus. So you clench your teeth. The ones that are left, you swallow pain, and you move on, because the day isn't done, and neither is the misery. Chapter 6. Labor and the Land. The Peasant's Endless Shift. The sun is up. There's no clock, but your body knows. The aches are more precise than any sundial. You've eaten your bowl of pottage, you've wrestled your tunic over your shoulders. Your tooth still throbs in the background like a slow, resentful drum. But it's time. You step outside, and the work begins. If you're like 90% of the population, and you're a peasant, that's not an insult. It's a job title. Your occupation, your identity, your birthright. Your job description is simple. Don't die while making someone else rich. You don't own the land you work. It belongs to the Lord who lives in a stone manor a few miles away. You've seen it from a distance, like a castle painted onto the sky. Inside, he's sipping wine, reclining near a fire. You're out here squinting into the morning frost, gripping a wooden hoe. Today you're tending fields. Yesterday you were digging a ditch. Tomorrow you'll be hauling stones. There's no schedule, only needs, and the needs never end. You start at sunrise, you stop at sunset. There are no breaks, no weekends, no paid time off. There's Sunday in theory, a holy day of rest. Unless it's harvest season, or planting season, or fixing the roof season. Then you work anyway and pray harder at night. Your tools are basic: a hoe, a sickle, a shovel made from wood, and desperation. Everything is heavy, everything is dull, everything splinters in your hands. You bend, you lift, you dig, you repeat. The soil is stubborn. The sun, when it comes, beats down like punishment. And the rain, when it arrives, soaks everything but your hope, your back. It gave up last week. Your knees, they scream with every step. But you keep going, because you have no choice. If you stop, the field stays empty. If the field stays empty, the grain doesn't grow. If the grain doesn't grow, you don't eat. And if you don't eat well, you already know how that ends. You look around, your children are helping. They're 5, maybe 6, too young to read, old enough to pull weeds. No school, no toys, no nap time. Just tiny hands in thick mud learning how to survive. Your wife works beside you. She's weeding with one hand, holding a baby with the other. Later, she'll cook, fetch water, patch your tunic, and pretend not to notice the lice again. She hasn't rested since childbirth, which was last month, or last year. You've lost track. If you're a craftsman, the day's only slightly different. A tanner works with hides and filth. A blacksmith with heat and hammers. A cooper makes barrels often drunk on fumes bent over oak staves that warp in the damp air. Their bodies break too, just in different ways. Injuries are common: a slipped blade, a crushed foot, a burned hand. You don't see a doctor. You wrap it in cloth and keep working, because if you don't work, you don't eat. And if you don't eat, you already know that part. Lunch is not a break. It's a pause. A mouthful of leftover pottage. A hunk of stale bread so hard it could be repurposed as a building material. You chew slowly, not because you're savoring it, but because you don't want to break another tooth. Then it's back to the field. Or the forge. Or the forest, if you're brave enough to risk poaching firewood and the punishment that comes with it. Because remember, even picking up a stick can be a crime. Even carrying a rabbit in your pocket could get you whipped, fined, or hanged. The law is clear. Your labor is yours. But the land, the trees, the animals, the air, not yours, never yours. You glance at the sky. Clouds roll in. It might rain again. You're already damp. You're already cold. But at least rain means less dust in your lungs, or more mud in your boots. There are no wins here, just trade-offs. The day stretches on. Your shadow grows long. Your arms shake. Your legs blur with exhaustion. And finally, the sun dips below the tree line. That's your signal. You stand straight, or as straight as your spine will allow. You shoulder your tools. You wipe your hands on your tunic now stained with soil, sweat, and time. And you walk home, not in triumph, not in joy, just in motion. Because tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Chapter 7. Whether or not medieval climate and other daily curses. You're home, your arms ache, your knees threaten mutiny. You collapse onto the stool by the door if you're lucky enough to have a stool and listen. To the wind, to the wet cough of a neighbor, to the creaking of your own bones, and to the air around you. Cold, always cold, because weather in the Middle Ages doesn't care about your feelings. Let's start with winter. There's no insulation, no central heating, no thick glass windows keeping the frost at bay. Your house is made of wood, wattle, and wishful thinking. Your walls have gaps, wide ones. You can see daylight through them. You can also see your breath, your windows. If they exist, they're covered with cloth, or oiled parchment, sometimes animal bladder. They let in light, and cold, and wind, and probably a few bugs. The fire in the hearth burns low. Because firewood is expensive, and stealing it from the forest is illegal. You were caught once. You still have the scar. So the fire flickers, then dies, and now your entire family gathers around glowing embers wrapped in wool, clutching warm bowls, hoping the night passes quietly. Your toes frozen, always, your fingers numb, stiff. You can't even tie the twine around your cloak anymore. You just drape it over your shoulders and pretend. Frostbite isn't diagnosed. It's just something that happens. You wake up and a toe is black, or a finger doesn't bend, and everyone nods slowly, like, yes. That's winter. Then comes spring. In theory, it's better. In reality, it's mud. Mud everywhere. Your shoes sink, your field floods, the roof leaks, your neighbor's pig falls into a hole and disappears for 2 days. You shovel water out of your house. You hang your tunic by the fire. It never dries, just changes texture. You walk carefully, because the ground is soft, and broken ankles mean hunger. Then summer. Finally, the sun rises early. The days stretch long. You sweat, constantly. Your tunic clings. Your skin itches. You dare not remove layers, not because of modesty, but because the sun burns, the bugs bite, and the stares of your neighbors judge. There's no deodorant, no baths, no relief. Just a warm breeze through your one-room house, carrying the scent of 6 humans, 1 goat, and something dead under the floorboards. The flies arrive next. They buzz. They swarm. They land on your food, your face, your everything. You wave them away with a cloth. They return. Mosquitoes follow. And biting gnats. And fleas. Always the fleas. At night, you try to sleep, but the air is thick. Your skin sticks to the blanket, and someone is snoring. Probably Uncle Wolfstan, again. You lie awake, listening to the heat, imagining snow, knowing it'll return too soon. Then comes autumn. Beautiful in theory, golden fields, cool breezes, crisp air. But for you, it's the season of panic. You scramble to harvest, to store grain, to patch the roof, to salt the meat, if you even have any. You count turnips. You hope the cellar stays dry. You pray the rats keep to their side of the wall. Because you know what's coming. And you know you're not ready. No matter how many layers you wear, no matter how tightly you seal the cracks, the wind still finds you, the snow still sneaks in, and the cold always returns, because weather doesn't care. It doesn't wait. It doesn't ask. It just arrives. And every season has a new flavor of suffering. But the clothes stay the same. The food stays the same. The aches, the chores, the prayers, all the same. Only the sky changes. And even then, not always for the better. Chapter 8. A sip of danger water. Beer and medieval thirst. You're thirsty. You've been working in the fields all day, sweat clinging to your tunic like a second wetter skin. Your mouth is dry. Your lips cracked. Your tongue feels like old leather. You look around. There's a stream nearby. It gurgles invitingly through the grass, clear, cold, perfect. You kneel. You reach in. And then you stop. Because you remember. You remember what happened the last time you drank from a stream. The cramps, the sweating, the vomiting. The week you spent curled on your straw mattress, clutching your stomach, whispering apologies to a God who wasn't listening. That's because the stream isn't clean. It's never clean. Someone upstream just emptied a chamber pot into it. Someone else bathed their donkey in it. And something is floating in the corner. It might be a branch. It might be a dead pig. You don't look too closely. Water in the Middle Ages is not refreshing. It's a gamble, a trick, a liquid roulette wheel. So what do you drink, beer? Yes, beer. At sunrise, at lunch, before bed. Even children drink it, because beer at least has been boiled. It's called small beer, made from low-quality grains, brewed weak, so no one gets drunk, just hydrated without dying. It's flat, warm, thin, tastes like someone whispered barley into a bucket. But it's safe, safer than water, and that's all that matters. Sometimes there's wine, if you're rich, if you're lucky, if you live near a monastery with generous monks, and even more generous vineyards. But mostly there's beer, and thin ale, and sometimes mead honey wine, sweet and rare, and absolutely not for peasants like you. So you drink your cup of small beer. It's warm, it's stale. It tastes like regret, but it won't give you dysentery, probably, and that makes it the finest vintage in all the land. But what about washing? Surely you still use water for that. Technically, yes. Emotionally, no. See, people believe bathing is dangerous. Doctors, such as they are, say washing opens your pores. And open pores, that's how the plague gets in. So the solution, don't wash. Just let the dirt harden. Let it protect you. Like armor. Like sin. And if you must wash, it's a process. Step 1, haul water. From the well. From the stream. from wherever it isn't full of goats. Step 2, heat it over a fire, which takes time, wood, and patience. You have none of those. Step 3, pour it into a wooden tub, which leaks. Step 4, convince your entire family not to use it before you, or worse, after you. Step 5, scrub quickly, rinse even faster. Hope no one sees you naked. Hope even more that no one joins you. Because communal bathing exists, but it's, let's say, reputationally complicated. Bathhouses are considered places of scandal. You go in for a wash, you come out with rumors, or fleas, or both. Eventually, the church gets involved. Bathhouses are closed. Cleanliness becomes suspicious. And so the cycle continues. You do not drink the water. You do not bathe in it. You do not trust it. You live near it. You cook with it, but always from a distance. Even rain barrels collect filth. Birds, bugs, mold. They bubble gently in the summer sun. Sometimes you drink anyway, out of desperation, out of thirst, out of foolish hope. And then you wait. If you're lucky, you burp. If you're not, you die. So next time someone hands you a glass of water, clean, clear, cold, remember that simple sip once cost lives. In the Middle Ages, thirst was never just discomfort. It was danger, and survival meant learning to live with beer breath before breakfast. Chapter 9. Clean is a lie. Bathing and the myth of medieval hygiene. Let's talk about being clean, or rather the illusion of it, because in medieval Europe, cleanliness is less about soap and more about survival theater. You look clean, that's enough. You smell acceptable, miracle. Bathing sounds like it should be simple. Water, soap, rinse, done. But here, no. Here bathing is risky. The prevailing belief, washing invites disease. Open pores, open pathways. Your skin, once scrubbed, becomes vulnerable. Better to be dirty and protected than clean and dead. So you don't bathe. Not often, not willingly, not well. And when you do, it's a production. Step 1, find a tub. It's wooden, it leaks, it groans under your weight like it's protesting your entire existence. Step 2, haul the water, buckets from the well, or the stream, or the rain barrel behind the hut where a bird is definitely floating. Step 3, heat the water, over a fire, which means chopping wood, which means maybe breaking the law, which means maybe dying clean in prison. Step 4, pour, cool, wait, reheat. By the time the bath is ready, you've burned through half a day, half your strength, and all your patience. And then you get in. The water's warm for about 3 seconds, then it's tepid, then it's murky, then it's suspicious. Because bathing is communal. You don't get your own tub, you get your turn. After your father, after your brother, after your uncle who works with livestock. By the time it's your turn, the water is more soup than soak. You lower yourself in. Something brushes your leg. You pretend it was a leaf. It was not. You scrub gently with a rag that used to be a shirt. There's no soap. Maybe ashes, maybe vinegar, maybe just hope. You rinse what you can. You leave what you must. You exit colder than you entered because the wind never waits. And the towel, also communal. Also damp. Also a rumor. You dress in the same tunic you wore all week. You shiver. You wonder if you're cleaner now or just wet and regretful. There are bathhouses, yes, but they are complicated. Once places of health and community, they've become places of rumor and sin. Men and women mingling, conversations, touching, steam. The church disapproves, so they close them, or shame them, or preach against the dangers of hot water and nakedness. And so bathing slips away, from ritual to routine, to rarity. Nobles bathe more often, of course. They can afford it. Private tubs, servants to heat the water, perfumed oils, rose petals. You get once a month. Maybe, or not at all. You use rags to wipe. You air out your feet by the fire. You sprinkle herbs in your hair and pretend that's shampoo. And when someone asks if you've bathed recently, you smile and say, yes. Recently enough. Because clean is relative. And survival doesn't smell like flowers. It smells like smoke, wool, sweat, and the faint unspoken agreement that everyone else stinks too, so no one mentions it. In the Middle Ages, hygiene is not a goal. It's a rumor, a luxury, a lie we tell ourselves so we can sleep a little better on straw. Chapter 10. The Sickening Truth, Medieval Medicine, and the Four Humors. You wake up shivering, or sweating, or both. You're not sure. Your stomach twists, your head pounds, your joints feel like someone poured sand into them overnight. You're sick. And in the Middle Ages, that's not just bad. It's biblical. You lie in your straw mattress, stale, lumpy, flea-infested, and realize there's only one thing scarier than being sick. Trying to get better. Because medicine isn't about science. It's about the humors, 4 of them. Blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Your body, they say, is a delicate stew. If any one ingredient outweighs the other's illness, too much blood fever, too much black bile, melancholy, too much yellow bile, anger, too much phlegm, congratulations, you're drowning in your own face. The solution? Balance them. How? By removing some. Bloodletting is a classic. You feel hot. Let's cut you open and let it out. Sometimes with knives, sometimes with leeches, sometimes with a sharp stick and confidence. Your local barber probably does it. Yes, the same one who cut your hair last week and pulled your tooth the week before. You sit in his chair. He ties a cloth around your arm, slices a vein, and drains you into a bowl like a Sunday roast. You faint. He nods proudly. It's working. Still sick? Try a purge. Drink this concoction. It'll make you vomit, or worse. Either way, something is leaving your body, and that's progress. Or maybe a laxative, or a steam bath, or mustard plasters, or a prayer, or all of them in a row. Your healer may not wash their hands, may not know the names of your bones, but they'll offer something with enthusiasm and Latin. If you're wealthy, you might get exotic cures. Powdered pearls, crushed emeralds, ground mummy. Yes, mummy. Imported, expensive. Scraped from the bones of Egyptian corpses, believed to have mystical life-restoring properties. Spoiler, it doesn't. If you're poor, you get herbs, moss, maybe an onion poultice, or a candle shoved in your ear to balance your head spirits. And if your illness lingers, you're probably cursed. Better call a priest, because illness isn't just physical. It might be spiritual. Maybe you sinned. Maybe you dreamed the wrong thing. Maybe your neighbor doesn't like you and prayed just a little too hard in the wrong direction. Your body isn't just broken. It's suspicious. You confess. You're forgiven. You're still sick. No one's surprised. Sometimes the healer tells you to tie a live toad to your chest, or sleep with garlic in your mouth, or wear the bone of a saint around your neck. And you do it. Because what else is there? No x-rays, no antibiotics, no clean bandages. A small cut can become a fever. A cough can become a death sentence. A rash can become your legacy, and childbirth, that's not medicine. That's roulette. Midwives help, but even they know when the blood doesn't stop. When the baby doesn't cry, no one can save you. So you lie back, on straw, with a cloth on your forehead. Someone's whispering a psalm. Someone else is boiling onion water. You close your eyes. You wait. Maybe you'll wake up tomorrow. Maybe not. In the Middle Ages, medicine isn't about healing. It's about outlasting the cure. Chapter 11, Dinner is Risk Food Poison and the Great Pottage Loop. Evening falls. You've survived the day barely. You're tired. Your back hums with pain. Your hands are stained with earth. Your stomach makes a hollow, hopeful noise. It's time for dinner. Not a feast, not comfort. Just calories. You sit near the fire, your bowl waits, and inside pottage, again. It's always pottage. A thick, grayish stew made from whatever you could find, borrow, trade, or unidentify in the root cellar. Some barley, some turnip, a few beans if you're lucky, and a flavor that's somewhere between boiled sadness and yesterday's regret. The pot never empties. It just continues. Old pottage becomes new pottage. A living culinary experiment, never fully cold, never truly hot, always just there. You stir. Something floats to the top. You hope it's a lentil. You don't look too closely. Next to the bowl is a hunk of bread. Hard, dry, heavy. You do not slice it. You strike it, like flint. It's made from coarse grain rye barley, maybe oats. If the harvest was bad, it's bulked with sawdust, or tree bark, or in desperate years, clay. It cracks between your teeth. You keep chewing, because hunger is louder than caution. There is no meat, unless it's a saint's feast day. Unless you caught a rat. Unless someone nearby died and left a chicken behind. Meat is luxury. Meat is privilege. Meat is memory. You dream of cheese. You think about apples. You vaguely remember what salt used to taste like. But tonight, it's pottage and bread and maybe a sip of beer. Still you eat. And with every bite you gamble. Because food in the Middle Ages isn't just fuel. It's risk. Let's start with grain. If it's rye season, there's a good chance of ergot, a fungus that thrives in damp conditions. What does ergot do? It makes your skin burn, your limbs twist, your vision blur, you hallucinate, and sometimes you die. They call it St. Anthony's fire. But there is no saint, only sickness. You eat the bread anyway, because hunger makes gamblers of us all. What about vegetables? Yes, they exist, but they're seasonal, unreliable, often overboiled until they surrender all color, texture, and hope. And then there's meat when you have it. No refrigeration, no ice. No understanding of what rancid means, only that it smells sharp. You salt it. You smoke it. You hang it in a cool corner and hope no one rat, cat, or child gets to it first. Sometimes it's covered in flies. Sometimes it's covered in spices if you're rich enough. Because in medieval Europe, pepper is more expensive than gold. Nutmeg exotic. Cloves practically royal. You have onions, if they haven't sprouted. And even those might make your stomach argue. Milk spoils fast. Cheese is safer. But both can carry more bacteria than blessing. You eat cautiously, slowly. You don't ask questions about texture. And still you keep eating. Because the real danger isn't what's in the bowl. It's not having a bowl at all. You chew your bread. You sip your beer. You glance at the fire. Someone's already asleep beside it. The baby cries. Your cousin snores. The wind rattles the wall. And you swallow the last mouthful. Tomorrow it will be pottage again. Because there is no menu. Only routine. And even that, in a world of plague, famine, and war, feels like a kind of luxury. Chapter 12. Your house is a hut, living in one room with everyone you know you've eaten, if that's the word. You've chewed the bread. You've sipped the beer. You've stirred the pottage and tried not to look too closely. Now it's time to rest, to go home, but you're already there, because there is no going home. You live in the same room where you eat, where you sleep, where you work when it rains, where your goat gives birth in the corner, and where your uncle is loudly losing at dice on the floor. Your home is a hut, made of timber, thatch, and dried mud. It leans slightly to the left. It smells like warm wool, wet earth, and something faintly spoiled. There is one door. It creaks. It sticks in winter. There is no lock. Because who's coming in, and what would they take? Your spare spoon. There are no rooms, no privacy, no curtains, just one large open space, your medieval studio apartment. Except instead of a roommate, you have everyone. Your parents, your siblings, your cousin's baby, a few chickens, and maybe a pig if it's cold outside. The floor is dirt. It was once just the ground. Now it's still the ground, but more well-trodden. In dry weather, it's dusty. In wet weather, it's mud. Sometimes it's both. If you're lucky, there's straw in the corners. It softens the sound. It hides the droppings. It provides bedding for you, for the animals, for the mice. There are no windows. There might be a small opening near the roof to let out smoke and let in cold and birds and confusion. Light comes from the fireplace if you have one. More likely, it's just a fire pit in the center. You huddle around it. You cook above it. You sleep beside it. And sometimes you wake up coughing from the smoke. There is no chimney. Just smoke drifting out through the gaps in the roof. And sometimes back into your lungs. Furniture? A bench. Maybe a table. A shelf for wooden bowls. A chest with all your worldly belongings. A knife, a shirt. A comb with 2 teeth missing. You sleep on a shared mattress, straw stuffed into sackcloth. It sags. It smells. It crunches when you move. And every night you lie beside your family. Everyone. Snoring, muttering, dreaming, fighting for blanket scraps, sharing air. There is no privacy, not for dressing, not for crying, not for giving birth. Even the animals sleep close. Their warmth is useful. Their presence is normal. No one questions why you woke up nose to nose with a goat. You just say good morning and move on. There is no storage. There is no pantry. There is only space, and it is always already taken. You know every creak of the boards, every hole in the wall, every draft. You patch them with cloth. Or hope. When it rains, you place pots beneath the leaks. When it's hot, you open the door and pretend that helps. When it's cold, you huddle close and say nothing, because everyone else is already saying brrr in their own way. This is not a castle, not even a cottage. It's a shelter, a compromise, a body made of wood and earth and repetition. But it's yours, sort of, until the Lord says otherwise. And when night falls, you lie in the dark, listening to the crackle of the fire, to the shuffle of feet, to the endless breath of people you love and tolerate in equal measure. And you close your eyes, because there's nowhere else to go. Chapter 13. God is watching religion, fear, and the church next door. You wake to a sound, low, echoing, metal striking metal, the church bell. It tolls every morning, not for beauty, not for comfort, but to remind you that you're alive, that God is near, and that He's watching. Religion doesn't live outside you. It wraps around your life like wool, tight, coarse, unshakable. There are no options, no belief systems, no personal truths. There is one truth, and it has a name, and a priest, and a building in the center of your village with a tower taller than any house. So everyone remembers who stands highest. You pass the church every day. You do not ignore it. You lower your head. You cross yourself, even if you're late, even if you're tired, because forgetting is dangerous. Inside, it's cold, dim, stone walls lined with faded frescoes and flickering candles. You've never sat in a pew. There are none. You stand or kneel, sometimes for hours. You don't understand the words. The Latin drones on. But you watch the priest's hands. You memorize the rhythm of the chants. You murmur responses you were taught, not told. You don't need to understand. You just need to obey. And the priest, he's not just your spiritual guide. He's your judge, your witness. Your one-man court of heaven. He blesses your marriage. He baptizes your children. He buries your dead. He keeps records not just of names and dates, but of behaviors, of sins, of suspicions. He knows who hasn't confessed. He knows who whispered during Mass. He knows who walks home a little too close to someone else's spouse. And if he doesn't know, Agnes does. Because religion here is not private. It is public surveillance wrapped in incense. Your neighbors see you skip church. They remember, they talk, they speculate. And speculation is almost truth. You give your tithe, 1/10, every year, whether you have or not. If your crop fails, you pay in eggs. If your goat dies, you offer labor. If you offer nothing, you offer your soul in debt. The holy calendar is long. Saints' days, feast days, fast days. But fasting isn't absence. It's structure. You eat fish on Fridays. You avoid meat during Lent. You eat nothing before communion. There are days when you celebrate, but never loudly. Joy is rationed. Pleasure is inspected. And too much happiness must be balanced with guilt. Confession is required. You kneel in a box. You whisper your failings through a screen. Sometimes you're not sure what to confess, but you say something. Because silence feels like rebellion. The priest listens. He says your penance, a prayer, a candle, a coin, and you're forgiven. But forgiveness is not freedom. It's just clearance to try again. You see stained glass windows in the Manor Church, bright saints, with gold halos robes of lapis and crimson. You don't know their names. You don't see yourself in them. You see yourself in the dirt, on your knees, wiping your hands before touching your face, because you don't want to sin while praying. You live under a sky of rules, not just what you do, but what you think, what you dream, what you feel. A sinful thought is still a sin. You are taught this early. As a child, you're taken to church. You mimic your parents. You recite by sound, not meaning. You learn to fear the devil before you learn to spell. There are images, paintings, sermons, stories whispered by firelight. The devil is always near. In the forest, in your idle hands, in your hunger for more than pottage and cold bread. And heaven. It's there too, but further, less vivid. You hope for heaven, but you fear hell. Fear keeps you still. Fear keeps you quiet. Fear builds a church in your bones. You don't rebel. You don't question. You survive. You pray. You confess. You tithe. You repeat. And every bell that rings reminds you God sees you. Even in the dark. Even when you're alone. Even when you're just tired and hoping to feel joy and can't. You kneel anyway. Because what's the alternative? In the Middle Ages, faith is not a choice. It's the air, the weight, the rhythm of life. God is watching. And so is everyone else. Chapter 14. Life on Hard Mode. Being a woman in the Middle Ages. You wake up beside the fire, or the baby, or the husband who snores like a broken bellows. You haven't slept much. You never do. You are a woman in the Middle Ages. which means everything hard is harder. There is no comfort in your day. There is only duty. You rise before the sun. You stoke the fire. You grind the grain. You knead the bread with sore wrists, eyes half-closed, hair still damp with sleep. You serve first. You eat last. If there's enough food, you smile. If there's not, you swallow hunger like guilt and say nothing. You feed your children. You clean their faces with your own spit and the edge of your apron. You sew. You spin. You scrape. You fold. And when your body aches, you keep going. Because no one stops for you. No one ever has. You bleed quietly. You give birth quietly. You bury babies quietly. If you cry too loudly, someone might say you're cursed, or sinful, or not strong enough for womanhood. You were married young, perhaps at 14, or 13. Your hips hadn't finished growing, but that didn't matter. Your opinion wasn't required, only your body. Marriage was not about love. It was about land, cattle, alliances. You were a womb wrapped in wool, a dowry in motion. Once married, you became his work, his childbearer, his burden, his responsibility, his property. You managed his house, you bore his name, you endured his moods, you cooked, cleaned, birthed, buried, and then did it again. If you spoke too often, too sharply, too freely, you were called a scold. They had a punishment for that, a metal mask, the scold's bridle. It locked your jaw shut, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. If you were too quiet, they said you were sly. If you were too smart, they said you were dangerous. If you were too kind, they said you were tempting fate. You could be accused of witchcraft for knowing which herbs help with cramps, speaking Latin, owning a cat, or just being unlucky on a rainy Tuesday. And if you were accused, they wouldn't ask if you were guilty. They would prove it, a trial by water. You're thrown into a river. If you sink, you're innocent and drowned. If you float, you're guilty and burned. Your body is never yours, not in birth, not in marriage, not in illness, not even in death. Even your death is someone else's work. Your body laid out, washed by another woman, whispered over, folded like a sheet, and lowered into a borrowed hole. You live inside a world that does not bend for you. And yet, somehow, you don't break. You teach your daughters to braid their hair tight, to keep their eyes lowered but their minds sharp, to memorize the smell of time, to keep seeds in their apron pockets, to know when to speak, and when to hold the silence like a blade. You teach your sons kindness if you're lucky, if they listen, if the world hasn't hardened them already. You laugh softly with other women, at the fire, over shared chores, over the same joke told for the 100th time because it's yours, and no one can take that. You dance once a year at the festival. No one is supposed to enjoy too much. You wear the dress you've been mending for a decade. You spin once and you remember something that almost feels like joy. Then it's over and you return, because you are a woman in the Middle Ages, and your job is not to be remembered. It is to survive long enough for someone else to be, and somehow you do. Chapter 15. Playtime and Plow's Childhood in the Middle Ages. You are 5 years old, or 6, or maybe 7. No one's really counting. There's no birthday party, no candles, no cake. There's just a shift in how people look at you. You are no longer small. You are now useful. You don't go to school. There is no classroom, no books, no chalkboard. Your education is your house, your village, your field, your mother's apron, your father's sigh. You learn to carry water before you learn to read. You learn to chop roots before you can write your name. You learn silence before you learn song. You rise with the others. You work with the others. You copy what you see. Because in the Middle Ages, childhood is not a sanctuary. It is an apprenticeship. If you are a boy, you learn your father's work. Plowing, hauling, hammering, herding. You carry small tools with oversized hands. You trip in the mud and are told, stand up. If you are a girl, you stay near the fire, stirring, spinning, scrubbing, soothing. You hold your baby brother while your mother bleeds. You learn to hush. You learn to fold. You learn to patch holes that never really close. You are needed, not protected. Useful, not precious. But sometimes, in between the chores and the hunger and the prayers, you play. Not with toys. There are no toys, but with sticks, with stones, with bones sometimes. You invent games with pebbles and twine. You chase chickens. You make a sword from firewood and a helmet from a cabbage leaf. You giggle, and someone tells you to hush. Laughter is rare, but not impossible. You don't dream of becoming a knight or a princess. Those are not people like you. Those are distant, glittering myths. You dream of shoes that fit, of not getting sick, of winters that don't eat your dog. You hear stories at night, tales of saints, of dragons, of sinners who turned into wolves. You believe them all, because belief is survival. You know death, not in theory, but in touch. You've seen siblings buried. You've whispered over tiny graves. You've watched a baby turn quiet and stay that way. You don't ask why. You ask who's next. You see the priest as often as you see your uncle. You learn the signs of sin long before you understand what sin means. Your world is small. A field, a hut, a patch of woods that adults say is cursed. You know everyone's name, and everyone knows yours. When you misbehave, you are not punished privately. Shame is public, correction is loud, and love is quiet, buried in a shared crust of bread or a look from across the fire. Sometimes there is music, a fiddle, a drum made from stretched skin. You stomp your feet and clap your hands, and for a moment, a real moment, you feel joy. It does not last, but it happened. And when you're 10 or 11 or maybe just big enough to carry your own weight, you become an adult. No ceremony, no celebration, just expectation. You work harder. You stop playing. You listen more. You forget what it felt like to chase chickens with your whole heart. But in some quiet corner of yourself, when the fire is low and the night is warm and no one is coughing, you remember that once you danced in bare feet in the mud with a stick for a sword and the sky for a ceiling. And no one stopped you. Chapter 16. Pain as entertainment, violence punishment, and public spectacle. It starts with a bell. Not a church bell, not a wedding bell. A different kind, lower, heavier, made for punishment. The villagers know the sound, mothers pause. Children are called inside, but most don't listen. Most run toward it, to the square, to the scaffold, to the event, because that's what punishment is. Not just justice, not even vengeance. It's theater, a warning made visible. The message, don't be this person. Be afraid. The guilty is brought out, sometimes dragged, sometimes marched, sometimes carried half-beaten, half-conscious. They don't speak. Or if they do, no one listens. This is not their moment. It's the crowd's. They are tied, lifted, displayed. And the people gather, like they're attending a festival. They bring food, children, dogs, because the punishment isn't private. It's not tucked behind stone walls. It's out in the open, where it belongs, so everyone can learn. Minor crimes get small humiliations. You stole bread, you're locked in the stocks, hands and head through holes, unable to move, all day. Sometimes overnight, villagers walk by. They throw things, rotten fruit, words sharper than knives. Some just spit. Some tell their children, this is what happens, and the children nod, because now they understand. You're a gossip, too loud, too opinionated. They call you a scold. They put an iron mask on your head. The scold's bridle. It covers your mouth. Sometimes presses a metal plate against your tongue, so you can't speak, or eat, or breathe right. You wear it through town, led by rope, laughed at. Judged by faces you've known since childhood. You offended the Lord. You pay in flesh, a hand removed, an ear, a nose, sometimes slowly, to make the point last longer. And then there are the major crimes. Heresy, treason, witchcraft. Those are not punished. They are purified. By fire, by blade, by drowning. Sometimes you are hanged, but not until dead. They cut you down before that, so they can hurt you more, then let you die later. Sometimes they boil you. Sometimes they break your limbs and leave you tied to a wheel. Sometimes they burn you with slow bundles of wet wood, so it smokes before it flames. So your lungs give out before your skin does. People come early for those. They want a good view. They bring stools and cider and children, because in the Middle Ages, suffering teaches. It teaches the guilty. It teaches the crowd. It teaches the children watching from their father's shoulders. There is no separation between punishment and performance. No curtain, no illusion. Pain is real, blood is public, and silence is mandatory. If you cry out too loud, you are mocked. If you do not cry, you are feared. If you try to run, they cut your tendon first. Because it's not enough that you die. You must be seen dying. And when it's over, they sometimes leave the body, hung in a cage, naked, rotting, rattling in the wind, as a reminder, do not lie, do not steal, do not curse the priest, do not read, do not love the wrong person, do not think too much, do not stand out, because the scaffold is always ready, and wood is cheap, and crowds are hungry, and, if there's no guilty person to punish this week, they'll find one. Chapter 17. The Medicine of Misery. Doctor's Leeches and the Art of Not Dying. You're sick. You don't know what it is. A fever maybe? Or a swelling? Or a sharp pain in your gut that won't go away. You hope it's not the plague. You hope it's not punishment. You hope it's not something God sent to remind you who's in charge. There are no hospitals. Not really. There are monasteries, with herbs and prayer. And beds that smell like other people's endings. There are barber surgeons. They'll pull a tooth, cut a lump, drain your blood. They also cut hair. You don't trust them, but they're the only ones with knives. So you go. You sit on a wooden bench. You try not to cough. You try not to look at the red-streaked rag in the corner. The healer arrives. He smells like smoke and garlic. He wears a robe that hasn't been washed since the last famine. His hands are calloused. His eyes are tired. He asks how you feel. You say hot. He nods. He says, too much blood. That's the answer for everything. Too much blood. Too much black bile. Too little yellow bile. Too many sins. So he pulls out a bowl, a knife, a leech. Maybe all three. You are bled. Because that's how balance is restored. He slices your arm just a little. The blood comes slow, then fast. You feel dizzy. He says good. That means it's working. He gives you a potion made of wine and ash, or ground beetle wings, or dried toad. You swallow it because you want to live. You're told to rest, in the corner, on straw, with a blanket that smells like the person who didn't wake up yesterday. There is no penicillin, no thermometer, no clean water, just time and pain and hope. If you're lucky, it's a cold. You recover. You go home. You thank God. If you're unlucky, it gets worse. Your tooth swells. Your wound festers. Your fever climbs like ivy up a church wall. Now you're sweating through your tunic. Now you're seeing things. Now the priest is at your bedside. He gives you last rites. Oil, prayer, a whisper. You know what that means. You've seen it before. They say, don't be afraid. You are. Some people try other cures. They go to wise women, with dried herbs hanging from the rafters, with books no one admits to owning, with remedies that sound like lullabies and spells at once. They are respected, until they are feared. Then they are burned, because healing is holy, but only if the church says so. There are no autopsies. No one studies why people die. They already know the answer. Sin, air, stars, God. You just live carefully and die humbly, sometimes slowly, sometimes in a crowd, sometimes alone with a bowl of leeches and a hole in your arm. To be sick in the Middle Ages is to play dice with the Reaper, blindfolded, bleeding, begging. There are no second opinions, only second prayers. You hope, you wait, you endure. Because medicine here isn't about healing. It's about surviving the cure. Your fever hasn't broken. The pain in your side sharpens with every breath. You cough and it sounds wet, heavy, final. People begin to look at you differently. They don't sit as close. They don't share bread. They don't speak your name if they don't have to. Because illness isn't just unlucky. It's suspicious. Maybe you sinned. Maybe God is angry at your family. Maybe something unclean has taken hold. They send for someone. Not a doctor. That word doesn't mean what you think it means. Maybe it's a barber. Maybe a priest. Maybe an old woman who's delivered babies and buried husbands. All of them have theories. None of them have answers. You're offered treatments, leeches because your blood needs balancing. Burning feathers to clear the air of miasma. A potion of wormwood vinegar and crushed emerald for the wealthy. Or a hot iron pressed to your skin just in case demons are involved. They wave incense. They whisper Latin. They draw crosses in the air. They place amulets under your pillow. You drink boiled bark. You sleep on salted stones. You wear a necklace made of garlic and wax. Nothing helps. In a distant city, the plague has begun again. No one says it out loud, but they've seen the signs. Boils, coughing blood, people collapsing in the street and not rising again. They start to paint crosses on doors. They light candles at the church steps. They bury the dead deeper. You are not told the truth, because there is no truth to give. The monks say to pray harder. The priests say to confess more. You do. You tell them everything, the lie you told, the loaf you took, the thought you had about Agnes, when she leaned over the well. You cry. You kneel. You vomit. You wait. The monastery has a herbal garden. Behind thick stone walls, monks tend to lavender, sage, mustard seed, rosemary. They believe in balance, in humors, in blood and bile. They treat with poultices and prayers, with wrapped compresses and psalms at dawn. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But they write everything down, in Latin, in ink, on scraped parchment made from calfskin. It's not science, but it's something. Others are less careful. Some burn their sick. Some wall them inside their homes. Some leave bowls of food at the threshold and never return, because fear is also a kind of treatment. And when the plague grows louder, towns close their gates. Farms are abandoned. Mass graves are dug in silence. The priests stop performing last rites. There are too many. The gravediggers wear rags over their faces, soaked in vinegar. They call it protection. It isn't. You recover, or you don't. If you do, they say God has spared you. They say your sins have been purged. If you don't, they say God has taken you. Either way, God is always the one holding the blade. And so medicine, in the Middle Ages, is not about precision. It's not about understanding. It's about endurance. You try what you can. You hope. You pray. You burn the rosemary. You whisper to the saints. And if death comes, you ask that it come quietly, because pain is expected. But noise makes people afraid. Chapter 18. What's for dinner? Starvation, spoiled meat, and the gamble of every meal. It's evening. You've worked all day. Your back is sore. Your hands are raw. Your stomach empty. You come home expecting food. You don't expect much. Just warmth. Just something to chew. Just something to tell your body it will survive another day. But this is the Middle Ages. Dinner is not pleasure. It's a test. You sit on the dirt floor, near the fire if there is firewood. If the firewood wasn't wet, if no one stole it, the pot is already on the hearth. It has been on the hearth for days, maybe weeks. This is pottage, a stew, a paste, a slurry of whatever was found not spoiled and still vaguely edible. It's made of grains, and turnips, and weeds, and memories of flavor. It smells like smoke and wet cloth. It tastes like yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. There is no recipe, only layers. Add something new. Stir. Don't scrape the bottom. That's where the mold lives. Tonight's ingredients: a half-rotted onion, a turnip that looks like it gave up 3 beans, and maybe, just maybe, a sliver of meat, if you're lucky, if someone caught a rabbit, or the Lord was feeling generous, or the dog didn't notice first. But meat isn't normal. Meat is an event. It happens on feast days, on weddings, on the day after someone else's pig wandered too far from home. And even when you get meat, it's not what you think. It's old. It's gray. It's been solid smoked or just scraped free of flies. You chew slowly, because there may be gristle, or bone, or surprise. You don't ask what kind of animal it was. It doesn't matter. Bread is always there, or at least something called bread. It's hard, dark, dense, made from rye, barley, or whatever didn't rot in the sack. In bad years they mix in bark, or straw, or sawdust, just to make it last. You don't slice it, you chip it. And if it's rye season, there's a bonus ergot, a mold, a poison, a fungus that makes your limbs shake and your mind wander. Some call it St. Anthony's fire, some call it madness. You just call it dinner. Fruit only if it's in season, and even then, it turns fast. Soft, mushy, blackened with wasps inside. Spices for kings, for queens, for merchants who've seen a boat. You've never tasted pepper. You don't know what cinnamon smells like. You've heard of sugar, but it's not for you. You drink something. Not water, never water. Water is for dying. You drink ale, weak, flat, bitter. Even children drink it, because the boiling kills the filth, usually. Sometimes you drink thin gruel, sometimes spoiled milk. Sometimes you drink nothing and pretend you're not thirsty. There are rules. Don't eat on Fridays unless it's fish. Don't eat during fasts unless you're pregnant or dying or already dead. Don't get caught poaching. The woods aren't yours. The deer belong to the Lord. Steal one, and your dinner becomes your last meal. Tonight, you chew. Quietly, carefully. You chew through bark. You chew through bone. You chew through memories of real meals you've never had. And when you're done, you wipe your mouth with your sleeve. You thank whoever you believe in, and you lie down, not full, not happy, just alive for now. Chapter 19, the final chapter, Death, Decay, and the Gift of Disappearing. You wake up, and something is wrong. Not a fever, not a cut, not a cough. Something deeper. A heaviness in your chest, a silence in your bones, a knowing. You're going to die. You don't scream, you don't beg. You just lie there and listen to the fire crackle and hope it's quick. In the Middle Ages, death is never far. It lives in the walls, in the wind, in the river water. In the wheat, you've seen people die from plague, from war, from childbirth, from a toothache. You've buried children, friends, neighbors, all younger than you. At 30, you are old. At 40, you are a miracle. At 50, you are suspicious. People ask what your secret is. You don't have one. You just lasted. When the end comes, there is no hospital bed, no white sheet, no quiet beeping machines, no family holding your hand in a sterilized room. You're on straw, in your home, surrounded by people who are trying not to cry, because crying makes it real. The priest arrives, eventually. If the roads aren't flooded, if there isn't another plague house down the road, he anoints your forehead, he whispers in Latin, he offers bread and wine. You can't swallow. He tells you God is ready. You hope he is. And then it happens. Slow or fast, with pain or with mercy, alone or surrounded. Your breath stops. The room holds still. Someone sighs. It's over, but death isn't the end. There's a body now, and bodies must be dealt with. There's no embalming, no chemicals, no fancy suits. You are washed with cold water, dressed in your best wool. The lice leave you finally. You are wrapped in cloth, maybe prayed over, maybe not. There is no carved casket, just wood or a shroud, or sometimes nothing. The ground is hard, or wet, or already full. They dig anyway. If you're lucky, you're buried in church ground. If not, in a common pit. If you were a heretic, they don't dig at all. They say your name, or they don't. They remember you, or they won't. You disappear, the way everyone disappears eventually. In 100 years, no one will remember who you were, what color your eyes were, what stories you told, what dreams you had. But the field you plowed still grows wheat. The child you raised still tells your jokes. The bowl you carved still holds stew, and the church bell still rings. Because in the Middle Ages, the greatest gift you get is to have lived, and to have disappeared quietly, without plague, without fire, without violence. Just sleep, just earth, just the end. You don't know the moment it begins. Not really. You feel tired. Not like after a long day. A different kind of tired. A kind that starts inside your bones and whispers, "This is it." You think you're too young, but you're not. Nobody is. Children die, mothers die, knights die, midwives die, even saints rot in the end. The most common causes: fever infection, starvation accident, cold, childbirth, God's judgment, or simply bad luck. You don't make a will. There's nothing to give. A wooden spoon, a patch of earth, a prayer someone taught you once, and you only half remember. You hope someone feeds your chickens. You hope someone buries you deeper than the rats can reach. If you're a woman, death often comes with birth. Not because you're weak, but because no one knows how to stop the bleeding. No one knows about germs. No one washes their hands. There is no anesthesia. Only rags, and maybe a bite of leather, and whispered words from other women who are too afraid to speak the truth. If you're a child, death comes before memory. Before you know how to say your own name. Nearly half of all children die before 5. No one has time to grieve them properly. There are too many graves, too little bread, too much silence. They call you back to the fields the next day, because the cow doesn't care who you lost. If you're a noble, you die with slightly more comfort, a feather bed, a priest on time, maybe even a stone slab with your name on it. If you're a peasant, you die in the same tunic you were born into. There will be no carving, no inscription, no dates, just a body, a hole, a prayer. Or not. Sometimes the priest comes, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes you're buried the same day. Sometimes the body waits until someone can dig, or the weather stops, or the plague ends. No embalming, no preservation, no velvet-lined box, just earth, and you, and whatever the rain decides to wash away. No one paints portraits, no one writes elegies, no one names a star after you. You vanish. Even your grave marker, if it ever existed, will be taken by firewood hunters or swallowed by moss. Your name fades from lips, then from memory, then from history. And yet, there is a kind of peace in this. You are not special. You are not cursed. You are not alone. You are part of the soil now, like all who came before you, like all who will follow. The same worms, the same roots, the same wind. To live in the Middle Ages is to live one breath from disappearance. No photographs, no journals, no trace, only what you touched, only what you left behind, and even that is borrowed. So when the end comes and the fire burns low and your body finally stops fighting, there is no applause, no curtain, just a sigh, a stillness, and then the soft sound of someone else waking up to begin their own final chapter. Chapter 20. The Lie of the Good Old Days. You've made it to the end. You've woken up in filth. You've scratched through fleas. You've worked till your spine bent like a plow. You've eaten bark-swallowed leeches, buried your children. You've prayed to a silent God while hoping the lice wouldn't move from your hair to your soul. You've survived a single medieval day, barely. And now, here in the dark, in the quiet, someone somewhere still calls it the good old days. They imagine castles and candlelight. They think of knights and noble ladies, of honor, of simplicity, of a world slower, gentler, more real. They imagine romance, but they imagine wrong. The truth, there was no romance, just hunger, and dirt, and cold, and repetition, and silence. Life was short, death was common, joy was a brief interruption. If you were born rich, you might survive. If you were born poor, you endured until you didn't. You didn't discover yourself. You didn't chase your dreams. You chased rats out of your grain sack. You didn't post about gratitude. You prayed the oats weren't moldy this time. You didn't slow down to enjoy the moment. The moment didn't care if you were there or not. So why do we long for it? Why do we imagine the past as golden? Maybe because we know we've lost something. A connection to land, to slowness, to silence, to stillness. Or maybe we've just never known true fear. The kind of fear that hums under everything. The kind of fear that makes people invent gods just to explain why the sun came back. We romanticize what we don't remember. We edit what we can't endure. But memory is a liar, and nostalgia is a clever one. Here's the truth. The Middle Ages were not magical. They were hard, and cold, and filthy, and brief, and people still laughed, still sang, still held each other, still watched the stars and made up names for them while scratching flea bites under a shared blanket of straw. Because even in misery humans are stubborn, and tender, and ridiculous. You in your bed now, with running water, with central heat, with antibiotics and bread that doesn't hallucinate. You're not soft, you're just free. Free to imagine, free to remember, free to sleep, and that more than anything is what they didn't have: rest. So now as the fire dies, and your breath slows, and the lice of 1325, leave your mind, let yourself drift. Not back to the past, but out of it. Forward, quiet, safe, sleep well. You've earned it. And now, we've come to the end. You've wandered through muddy streets, shared your bed with straw and shadows, and watched the flicker of firelight on stone walls that forgot your name. You've survived hunger, cold, and the ache of a world that never paused, never softened. And still, somehow, you made it through. Tonight wasn't just a history lesson. It was a quiet walk through a time most would rather forget. A time not of magic or chivalry, but of aching feet, hollow bellies, and the resilience of ordinary souls. And now here you are, not in a hut, not in a field, not beneath a leaky roof, but warm, safe, still. Let your body soften. Let the noise of the day dissolve into breath. Let the echoes of the past fade gently into silence. You don't need to remember the fleas. You don't need to relive the hunger. All you need to carry forward is this: even in the darkest chapters, people still lit candles, and so can you. So, good night, my friend. May your dreams be soft. May your rest be deep. And may tomorrow rise kind and golden on your horizon. I'll see you again in the next story, the next sleep, the next quiet place, between waking and memory. Until then, sleep well, dream sweet, and let history hold the watch for now.